stuck to the plan. Always said that we would stand up, never ran. We the fam and loyalty never change up. Been down since day one, look at where we came from. Jumping out on anybody who try to say something. One thing about it, got a problem, I got the same one. Money rolls, we fold. Plenty clubs, we close. Follow the same code. Never turn our backs, our cars don't even lose control. One shot, everything rides on two.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 22 of the Associated Wrestling Press's College Wrestling Review. I'll be your host, Eric Wolnowski, BTN, NCAA and ESPN wrestling analyst. And today's guest I'm very excited to have on the show because if you know me, you know I'm a Twitter fiend and you have some of the best content. You always seem like you're doing something. So if you're familiar with the Twitter world, The Wrestling Nomad, at Wrestling Nomad, and your real name, Dan Lobdell.
Correct.
But on the streets, you go by The Wrestling Nomad, right?
On the Twitter streets, yeah.
All right, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And you were actually the first follower of The Wrestling Nomad on Twitter.
Nice.
Fact. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you're doing good things. I like what you're doing. I really do. Before we get started with the show, I just want to say thank you to everyone at the Big Ten Network in Ohio State for letting me have the opportunity to cover the Big Ten Championships this past weekend in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing but professionals working, so thank you guys very much. You made me feel at home, and I couldn't thank you enough for that opportunity. With that said, did you have an opportunity to catch the Big Ten Championships?
I only got to watch the finals. We had some other stuff going on that weekend, and unfortunately, the Nomads funds are a little short right now for the BTN Plus. But I was following everything on track, and definitely, got some highlights and watched the finals, of course.
Okay, so what were your thoughts on the team race? If you're just tuning in and you don't know, Iowa and Ohio State end up tying at 120 apiece. Minnesota takes third with 108, and surprise, Michigan is ahead of Penn State with 102.5. What are your thoughts on the team race?
I thought it was interesting. Jeva came up huge for Iowa, and Hunter came up huge for Ohio State. So I think both of them kind of got some unexpected performances. Like I've said, like a bunch of people have said, 14 one-point matches for Ohio State, 9 one-point matches for Iowa, with 3 head-to-heads there. Any of those 20 matches go the other way, and we're looking at an actual champ instead of a co-champ.
Right, and the thing that stood out to me about this championship was, you mentioned the one-point matches, but just Ohio State toughing out the matches that you didn't expect them to win. It was great to see. For instance, and after looking at the NCAA bracket, I might have just thrown myself under the bus, but Tomasello, he was that guy for me. Someone who you didn't expect. He's wrestling Delgado in the semifinals. You don't really expect him to beat Delgado, although Delgado's hurt. Weight is an issue. I said it many times. You can be in shape, but being in wrestling shape is a lot different. So for me, that guy that really stepped up for this tournament and won the team title for Ohio State would have to be Nathan Tomasello. Not even winning the team title, but was there a individual that you felt really stepped up and really surprised you at the Big Ten Championships?
The two that definitely stood out for me were Morgan McIntosh and Mike McMullen. With Morgan, he was such a ballyhooed recruit coming in. He was pretty much top 5 by everybody who was doing rankings back then. And, he got handled by Snyder the first time they wrestled. And he just kind of calmly and coolly just worked through that match, worked through the bracket. And I think that really goes to show the kind of coaching that he's got with Kale and Varner. I think he's really paying attention to the things that they're telling him. And I think he's made that leap. And then McMullen, I go to national preps every year, and I've loved that kid ever since he's been at Wyoming Seminary. And I feel like the weight that's off his shoulders now after finally winning a tournament, he said it was the first one since, I think it was Cleveland State Open in 2010, he said.
Yeah.
I think he also is really over the hump, and I think he's just going to wrestle relaxed. And I think he's got a good shot to take Gwiz this weekend, or next weekend.
Yeah, and here's what I love I love the action that he brought. I love the excitement that he brought because with the heavyweight match at the end of the Big Ten championships, and not even the Big Ten championships, but for every tournament, the heavyweights usually get the short end of the stick because everyone leaves.
Always short end of the stick.
But half the crowd stayed there, and 95% of them were for Ohio State. But the thing I would like to see that we didn't see is with him and Nathan Tomasello, the third period was a track meet. You watched a track meet. They both ran, but you get the win, so I'm not going to take the Big Ten championship away from them. But with the Big Ten being such a super power conference, I mean, nobody really can compete. You look at the qualifications that they get every year, it's 70% more than
86 this year, I think.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. When you saw the amount of qualifiers that the Big Ten had for the NCAA, it's kind of overwhelming, but do you think the Big Ten really deserves that many qualification spots?
I mean, shot out of a cannon, I'm going to say yes. I mean, if you look at the states they're pulling from, you're looking at PA, Ohio, California. The Illinois guys have some California. Illinois by itself is always a tough state. And I think it really kind of speaks to the other conferences need to get bigger, or we need to have more super regionals. I saw something on Twitter that said the Western Conference, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 could do something. But I think we got to make it so, I mean, there's 77 teams right now. If we can get as close to 5 regionals of 16-man brackets as possible, then it'll be a little more economical as far as, the distribution of all the qualifiers.
Yeah, good point. It's
a lot.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I always ask, because if we're taking, say, Oregon State, for example, winning the Pac-12, you take the Pac-12 champion, and you had made a point to me about Maryland, which is a great point, so I'll let you touch on that. But for the Pac-12, if Oregon State, how do you think they would do if you took them out of the Pac-12 and put them in the Big Ten? I don't think that they would they be top 5, top 10?
Probably not. The point I made to you was that Maryland, ever since Kerry McCoy got there, has been at or near the top of the ACC. And, Maryland's my home state. I know some guys on the team. And, yeah, they had a rough year this year. It might have been a down year, but it just goes to show you the depth that the Big Ten has. And, yeah, I don't know if Oregon State would be that good. And, Taylor Meeks, Ronnie Bresser, if you're listening, I hear prove me wrong. I really like watching you guys wrestle. I like that the Pac-12 was by itself, but yeah, I think you're right. I think Oregon State would kind of be hanging back in that 5th, 6th range if they were at Big Tens this weekend.
So now here's the question: NCAA brackets just come out. So I don't totally agree with some of them, and a lot of the stuff is. It's almost like they just drew it out of a hat. They didn't look about the consequences down the road because, for instance, you have Josh Kindig wrestling David Habit. First match.
And they have Hunter Stieber if he beats Rugarella, which Rugarella is tough. That might not even happen. Then you have Hunter Stieber as your second round match.
Yeah, and the thing with Hunter Stieber is he couldn't even get his arm raised. If you weren't able to watch that, he couldn't get his arm raised after he beat Penn State. Was that who he was wrestling?
Bites.
It was Bites, yeah, from Penn State. He couldn't even get his hand raised. So that's how badly hurt he is. But still, you get David Habit gets rewarded with the number 3 seed, and then how do you think he was when he saw? Oh, well, I'm just gonna have to wrestle the returning NCAA runner-up first round. And I don't like how people always say, well, if you want to win a championship, you got to beat the best guys. Yeah, but you don't do that to him.
Yeah, and there's a bunch that are kind of like that, but that one definitely sticks out. And I also think it was funny how they gave Jesse Delgado the wink wink nudge nudge 8 seed. He's not the 8 seed, but he's slotted right in there with Tyler Cox.
Yeah,
and Tyler Cox another one. Tyler Cox is a really good wrestler. That kid has had a good career, and he might get knocked out and have to go for 3rd because he's got Jesse Delgado.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
the thing with him is I love that he wrestles 7 hard minutes every match. They were wrestling. Oh, I'm blanking right now, but earlier in the season, I think he was down by like 8 points going into the third. Something crazy, and ends up winning. And that just shows, I mean, I don't know if he could be Jesse Delgado, but poor Tyler Cox. What are you most looking forward to for the NCAA championships?
I really like upsets. And it's not because I like seeing good kids lose, but I mean we had this is the way that our sports designed. It's the way a lot of sports are designed. You have a final end of year tournament, and you got to prove how tough you are. And then another thing, a lot of the guys that I watched growing up in national preps, Chris Villalonga, that kid. I don't think I've ever seen a kid who looks more like he should just be an amazing wrestler. And he hasn't put together March, and that's not a knock on Chris. I really like the kid, but I want to see him put together a tournament. And I was just arguing with Richard Immel. I think Villalonga can make the finals. I think How to Shelter Road is littered with bombs, and I think he's one of those bombs that he's gonna have to get through.
I wrestled him in the Beast of the East finals. The only cradle I've ever hit in my entire life was against Chris Villalonga. And I
think I was watching that match the other day.
Yeah, Wade Chalice. I was working with Wade Chalice before, and he was a pinning machine, and my coach knew him, and he said, hey, can you show him a cradle? So we worked on it the round before. Before the semis, we worked on a cradle, and I end up hitting it, and I've never hit another one. But we are slowly running out of time. Let's do some quick questions here. So, favorite to win besides Dierner and Stieber?
I like Kokesh. For whatever reason, 174 has just consistently put kids. They've had undefeated champs going back: Askren, Borschel, Gavin. And Kokesh looked good, so I'm gonna ride with him.
Most overrated wrestler in the country at the NCAA tournaments?
I don't know. Like I said, I've never been really much impressed with Dylan Peters, and I don't know. Another thing I just said, I think Josh Jett is going to blow it for Iowa, so we'll see about that.
All right, team race outcome. This is tough to see. Now I asked you this before the brackets came out, so now that you saw the brackets come out, you can change your mind. Who do you think has the best opportunity to win the NCAA title this year?
I still got to go with Ohio State. Logie Bear, obviously, bonus points machine. Demas with the 6th seed, they basically gift wrapped him an All-American. That's something I didn't see happening. And Brian Smith's Missouri Tigers repeatedly underperformed their seeds in March. And LeVon Mays got 3rd at Max and got a 3rd seed, but everybody's saying Tiger-style seeds, but I don't know. It's all about the hammers, and OSU has hammers.
Yeah, they have guys that can compete later on down the road. Not Minnesota. You're not even giving them a shot.
No, they have fallen off so far. I mean, I don't even know if they're gonna have any finalists. In maybe a Dardane, but outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah, Storley and Schiller. I mean, and I hate criticizing people, which I want to ask you something else. But I hate criticizing them because when I was out there, I didn't get the job done. But I just don't think they're getting to their offense. When Schiller, when you see him down in some matches and it's the 3rd period and late and he needs a takedown, he can get a takedown. But he doesn't do that in the 1st and the 2nd period. And I hate when wrestlers wait to the 3rd period to take care of business. You have 7 minutes, and then you're going to get mad when the ref doesn't call a takedown with 3 seconds left. You had 6 minutes and 57 seconds. Get to work when the time's on the clock.
Or you walk off the mat stomping and crying. It's like, where was that energy in the 1st period?
Right. So now with that said, do you think as fans we're too negative on these wrestlers or on the sport or just wrestling in general? Do you think that we're too negative?
We might be, but I think a lot of it's justified. I think part of it's because wrestling is so digitized, because that's the only way we can really keep it up, because we're not on TV. Basically, everything's on the internet. So maybe it's just because we're in the echo chamber. But a lot of it's justified. I mean, if you're not getting takedowns, man, who wants to watch you? So we might be too negative, but wrestlers, you're the ones doing it to us.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I think about this. I get so much stuff on social media for criticizing the way the sport is being run. You have successful people in the sport pushing for change. You have to build on people who have grown up around the sport. They know exactly what made this sport successful back in the day. They know what's going to make it successful now. They're not going to say, let's make takedowns worth 5. They're not going to throw crazy. Yeah. They're not going to throw crazy ideas out there just to hear themselves talk. They are going to have legitimate reasons to better the sport. And I think, I mean, for instance, for the Midlands Championships, I went on social media and I said, it's pretty sad that you don't see a takedown in regulation time until Isaiah Martinez comes up at 125. And I get stuff for that. And it's like, Eric, you should be the one who is promoting the sport. I am promoting the sport, but I can't just sit back and sit here and watch the sport just deteriorate because the referees are afraid to call a stalling. You know what I mean?
I mean, the question is, are you lying? You're not lying. The Midlands finals were kind of boring.
And they're on the Big Ten Network. They're on the big stage. That's the biggest stage for wrestling besides the NCAA championships.
And God bless Aymar. I hope that kid destroys people this weekend. He'll go, oh yeah, that's what wrestling is supposed to look like.
Yes.
A kid who's exciting on his feet, who is not afraid to... He's not afraid to go upper body with Dylan Ness. He was locking up with him. It was like, oh, you want to throw me? Here, I'm going to throw you right back.
Right, and that was the game plan. I was speaking with Shane Sparks during after the match, and I said, dude, why was he going with the underhook? If you're thinking Dylan Ness, you're thinking high flyer, you think 5-point moves, the last thing you're going to want to do is throw a left-handed underhook.
And then Aymar body slams him. And what was that, the second or the third? That was nasty.
Oh, that kid he's something else. And he was a guest on the second caution, so make sure you check that out because he's a good kid, but
I'm not going to blow it, but for anybody who hasn't seen it, he's got a funny story about Fargo. You should really listen to the second caution with Isaiah. He's got some funny stories.
Man, I was crying. I was literally crying when he told me that.
Did you ever have that experience? Is it where his coach your coach did that to you?
No. I never missed weight. I was always small, so. But that's it for the time here on episode 22. Where can everyone follow you on social media?
The main one is my Twitter is just at Wrestling Nomad. The Instagram is at The Wrestling Nomad, which is probably short-sighted on my part. And then I'm really trying to get back into what I was originally trying to do, which is tell stories about the sport. So the Wrestling Nomad Tumblr page is probably going to be picking back up after NCAAs. So if anybody wants to share their story about all the places wrestling is taken, then please hit me up.
All right, awesome. Yeah, well, I'll make sure to put everything in the show notes just so everyone knows where to follow you and where to hit you up at. Thank you very much for being on episode number 22. Actually, a big announcement. I will be starting a third show that will be featured on the Associated Wrestling Press. The College Wrestling Review is just to review college wrestling, the week's full of college wrestling. The second caution is just for college and international athletes. And now I'll be starting my third show, which will interview high school athletes. So I will have Freddie Stroker on episode number 1 and Mark Hall on episode number 2.
Agon. Freddie Stroker, Agon.
Yes. Very excited about that.
All against the world.
All right, Wrestling Nomad, thank you very much. For Wrestling Nomad, I've been Eric Olenowski. Thank you guys for watching.
See you guys.